very much for joining. My name is Hielke Koers. I'm the CIO of STM Solutions, and I serve as Program Director for GetFTR. It's my pleasure to start the session today and to welcome you and to welcome so many of you. We're delighted to have close to 100 participants, or at least folks who registered, which I think is a record for these type of GetFTR webinars. So that's great, and that's also very fitting. I think the common thread of the discussions and the presentations that we have for you today is around growth. You will hear quite a lot about growth in these presentations. Growth not only in terms of number of publishers and number of services integrating with GetFTR, and growth not only in the utilization and the number of API requests with the entitlement information that GetFTR is handling, but also growth in areas of applicability and how GetFTR is being used, use cases, and how it's adding value in more ways. We have a very nice lineup of speakers who illustrate different points of view on that growth story from different perspectives. So welcome to all of our speakers, and thank you very much for making the time. I do have 2 points of housekeeping. The first, as I wanted to make everybody aware that we are recording the session, and second, we have quite a bit of presentations and quite a bit of speakers. So what we wanted to do is save questions until the end. So if you have a question during the presentation or a comment, feel free to put it in the chat, and then we will circle back to that at the end of the session today. With that out of the way, let me give the microphone to the first speaker today, which is Heather Staines. Heather is a senior consultant at DeltaThink and also the outreach manager of GetFTR. And Heather will kick it off with an overview and an update. So Heather, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Hielke. It's very exciting to be here today to give an overview and an update about what's going on with GetFTR. We've designed this session today to be informational. So if you do not have a background that goes deeply into to GetFTR, hopefully you will learn more today. If you're quite familiar, if your organization has already integrated either as a publisher or a discovery service side, we also want to be able to tell you what's new. As Hielke mentioned, we have a nice lineup of speakers. We like to vary the voices that you hear from. So just a little bit about who you will be hearing from before I kick off. You'll be hearing from Laird Barrett. Laird is a group product manager at Springer Nature. He works on solving problems and building solutions for librarians, and he's been involved with GetFTR since its inception. We'll also be hearing from Judson Dunham. He is Senior Director of Product Management at Elsevier. He leads a team of product managers responsible for developing and maintaining ScienceDirect, and has been a leading pilot program integrating other publishers' content into ScienceDirect using GetFTR, which is what he will tell us about today. And Nancy Summers, I think I've got them a little bit out of order here. I apologize. Maybe they are right in order. Nancy Summers is a senior product owner for CAS SciFinder, which is our discovery case study. She works with several team members to design, develop, and integrate features into the SciFinder product. And she worked with her development team to integrate GetFTR, which is what she will be telling us about. So go to the next slide, please, Hielke. So a story of growth, as Hielke mentioned, we wanted to just give you a snapshot view here at the beginning if you've been following our progress, or if you're not and you're first hearing about it. On the left-hand side of your screen, you see leading integrators that are currently using GetFTR. These include the digital science suite of products, a number of Elsevier platforms and services, some publisher A&I discovery sites, which is an interesting use case for us, the Cactus implementation researcher app, the Chorus OA audit use case, Deep Dive, My Science Work, and Springer Nature Experiments, which is one of the newer integrations. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see the platforms and publishers that are currently live on GetFTR. I'll talk a little bit in a moment about the founding publishers, but we do see now that we have Adapon and Silverchair on board, more and more publishers choosing to come in from those platforms. In the bottom center, you can see Highwire and KGL Pub Factory as platforms that are coming soon, along with some additional integrators and publishers there. In the center of your screen, we like to show that nice growth amongst the number of entitlement requests that are completed. And we're really excited that's growing tremendously. And we're currently supporting more than 40 million entitlement decisions per week. Just to circle back, with the platforms and publishers currently on board, that's more than 50% estimate of the scholarly article output. So very exciting growth story there. Wanted to tell you a little bit about the history of GetFTR, and this is from a wonderful infographic, which is a lot more information than we can show you here. So go to the GetFTR website and you can check that out. On the left-hand side, you'll see a timeline. It's a bit small to try to read here, but just since late 2019, when the service went live, shows the publishers and integrators who've been joining, as well as some significant updates from our side, including the addition of IP authentication, the ability to batch request DOIs, our self-serve publisher portal, and some recent developments. There on the right, GetFTR, by the numbers, the total of 800 million GetFTR links return and 2.7 billion DOI requests. So it's quite a large number. Next slide, please. So the reason that GetFTR was initially created was to accelerate the discovery of and access of authoritative and trusted research, as you see here. On the right-hand side are our 5 founding publishers, and they had a number of goals in mind in working with the GetFTR development team. They wanted to get researchers to the best version of an article that they could access, typically via a smart link, which we'll tell you about in just a moment, and to combine the different sources of information about the user, the different entitlement systems, to show that user the maximum number of accessible articles to them. We all have faced that experience when we're in our favorite discovery service, we get a bunch of search results back, and if you're like me and you're not affiliated, there's a highly likelihood, that I'm not going to get through to my articles. So indicating to those users upstream whether they're going to be able to get through to those articles or not manages their expectations, and the persistence of once they are authenticated, given the network effect, means that will remove subsequent friction. They will not be challenged, over and over again for a username and password, which we'll talk to you about as well. So how does it work? On the left-hand side, we've got our researcher. She starts her discovery journey on her favorite discovery platform, scholarly collaboration network, or the like, whether she's on or off campus. Behind the scenes, an entitlement API from GetFTR goes out to participating publishers. It passes along the user's affiliation so that those article DOIs in the search results can be checked against both open content as well as subscribed access. Those links that you see pulled out there in the middle are returned in a batching form throughout her requests, and then she clicks on the one that she thinks best meets her needs, and she goes through to the full text for the article. So GetFTR indicators will let those users know, as I mentioned, that they will be able to get through to their content either because it's open or their institution has made it available to them. So we want to reduce the number of dead ends or unexpectedly hitting paywalls that they might not be able to get past. So we are flexible for our integrators. There are a number of ways they can convey this information to their users. We just wanted to show you a couple of them here today. So on the left-hand side is the semantic scholar integration, and they use the little GetFTR circle indicator on and access the PDF via your institution button. In the center, we show the researcher app. They have also used the GetFTR indicator there, and behind that article title, is a smart link. The user clicks to go through to the full text. Then finally here on the right-hand side is an example of the browser extension use. In this case, we're showing you over the PubMed site, and this is the ReadCube papers integration. So it's implemented when the user hovers over the View PDF or Get PDF button. They get a message that their institution has provided access for them to the content. So if you're from a discovery service side, we've definitely got something that should meet your needs and integrate well with your site. I mentioned it reduces the unnecessary steps by repeatedly asking a user to log in. So what we see here on the left side is a discovery service that has brought our researcher a variety of results back. In this case, both Elsevier and Wiley articles. If our user is not IP recognized, they will be routed initially when they click through to their sign-in flow via their institution, in this case, Harvard, and then they get to their full text after that. Once they return to the search results, and now they've got a Wiley article, they will go straight through. Their authentication at their institution persists in their local browser storage, and they will be recognized and able to access the content without further friction. So publishers, when they're looking at setting up an integration with GetFTR, can also provide streamlined access to references, which we're going to hear a little bit about later on. So while the use case that I talked about before would show those GetFTR indicators on discovery services, and a lot of the action was really behind the scenes, what you see here in our example is an implementation where, in addition to other links that the references may include, a GetFTR smart link can be provided to the user as well. So this is a little snapshot of an integration with ScienceDirect. The View PDF is actually a GetFTR link on the reference for that article, and other publishers are going live and in the process of going live. And there's some preliminary indications that this might be a more attractive link for users to click on than some of the other options, but of course all of the other options are shown. Now I'm going to hand over to Laird, and Laird is going to talk to us about some of the integrations that he has been involved with at Springer Nature. Thank you, Laird.
Thanks. Hi, Heather. Can you hear me okay? I think I froze up for just a second there, so I missed the last part of your conversation, but hopefully you can hear me okay now.
I think you sound okay.
Good. So I'll talk about one way in which publishers are starting to make use of GetFTR as a service on their own content delivery platforms. In the case of Springer Nature, those are websites, for example, like nature.com or Springer Link or Biomed Central. Could you go to the next slide, please? So one discovery pathway that researchers use is reference lists. So they might be on obviously a publisher's content delivery website, reading an article they're interested in, and they obviously want to read out from that article, and so they scroll down to the list of references on that article page, and they start to sort of read outward from that reference list. And one thing that publishers have traditionally done to try and ease that discovery pathway for researchers is by providing links out to those articles on the web, or to discover those articles on the web. And here are some examples just from various publishers' sites that you can see on the screen here. And the current state is that often publishers provide a range of links depending on what's available. So you might have just sort of a DOI link. So you can see in the bottom right there under literature cited, there's a cross-ref link there. I think there's also this article link on the top right under this references list. You might have a link out to Google Scholar, for example, which runs a search for that article on Google Scholar. You might have links within a platform for a piece of content that is also available from the same platform you're on. You see the Wiley online library link in the middle there. The list goes on and on. You might have, for example, outbound open URL links, so that a researcher can sort of link in with their universities or their institutions a knowledge base to see if their institution holds that piece of content. And that can be more or less accurate depending on the accuracy of the institution's knowledge base. And I think the reality is that this experience, unfortunately, for researchers can be confusing and painful sometimes. So you can get a range of different links presented to you. Sometimes those things have it might be the same thing, but have different names. For example, you've got the article link on the top right. What's lying behind that, you might not know as a researcher. You've got the cross-ref link down at the bottom. It's lying behind that, you might not know it's actually the same thing, but called different things, but it's a bit ambiguous. And some of those forward journeys can lead to dead ends or not really what you want, right? So you can click on one of those links, and your institution might not subscribe to that piece of content, and so you painfully hit a paywall. Or you might, for example, say go through to Google Scholar, and again, your institution might not subscribe, and you might not be on your institutional IP, or have your institution might not have, or the publisher might not have CASA linked up, for example, and you might be presented with a version of the article which isn't actually the publisher provided version of record that you're interested in, and so unfortunately those experiences can be not great on publisher sites. And so one thing to try and improve the researcher experience of discovery, authentication, and access through this reference list pathway, if you don't mind going to the next slide, is to become an integrator with GetFTR. So as a researcher loads their reference lists, make a call out to GetFTR to see if that researcher is entitled to that piece of content or not, and then load one of the GetFTR links onto the page with the references, so that there is an easy pathway for that researcher through to the publisher provided version of record. One publisher has rolled this out so far. Elsevier has rolled it out on ScienceDirect. I think broadly speaking, I think what they have seen is good engagement with the addition of that new link on ScienceDirect. Judd might be able to talk about it in a bit more detail. But overall, I think they have seen people gravitating toward making use of that link, and you can see it on the page here, the view PDF link. Judd, did you want to say anything about your implementation very quickly?
Honestly, I think you've said it. I mean, we know that users gravitate towards view PDF links if they know that they can get a PDF, and I think our experience in the reference is really no different. So I think it's been a plus for us, and it's been a plus for users and for all the publishers who've integrated.
Thanks. So other publishers are considering doing this now. Springer Nature is amongst them, and so I think we're looking at doing this on our content delivery websites at the moment. I know that some of the other publishers who are using platform software like Adapons Literatum, for example, are considering doing it, and so this might be functionality that may be available through that platform in the near future. I think that a few of the considerations when you are thinking about doing this are the performance of GetFTR and the user experience on your website. So I think in the case of ScienceDirect, at least, they're lazy loading the links, so they don't make the call for the full reference list. They just sort of progressively make calls to GetFTR to load progressively load those links across the pages. You might want to think about sort of the call to action and the indicators that you use. Obviously, the call to action selected by Elsevier here is view PDF, which is sort of a signal that you're one way to signal entitlement, essentially. Although I think there are considerations about using the GetFTR indicator as well, and I think GetFTR obviously provides some UX guidelines and suggestions as well. And then I think the other things to think about are how you're going to measure the impact that you have by making this change. So, taking a look at how the links that you're currently providing on your site are being used, and taking a look at how user behavior changes once you introduce this link. And you might also be interested in looking at things like whether this helps to drive usage on your own platform for those, say, those links, GetFTR links you're providing that provide traffic back to your own platform, if you're not already doing something that is sort of inter-platform in terms of those links on your website. Yes, that is the story of GetFTR and publisher reference list. So another use case that has come up. And I believe I hand over to Judd.
Thanks, Laird. Take it away, Judd.
Thank you. Judson Dunham, Director of Product Management here at Elsevier, and I'll get right to it because I was told I have 5 minutes. So Heather, start me up. If you haven't heard of this, we have recently gone live on ScienceDirect with a pilot to host non-Elsevier content on SD. Of course, ScienceDirect historically for almost 25 years now has been Elsevier's full text platform for journals and books. Even though it was originally conceived as being something that could be cross-publisher, it never really happened until now. So we're very happy that we now are hosting a little more than 70,000 articles from a whole lot of the top journals in organic chemistry, and also a few from transportation from Taylor and Francis, with 3 of the founding members of GetFTR, and the Royal Society of Chemistry has come along for the ride. So the pilot is the contours of it. It's essentially the same experience for everybody, and except for one thing, and I'll get to that in a minute. Everybody, doesn't matter if you're a customer or of ScienceDirect or a guest user or whatever, everyone can see the abstract of subscription-based content, and everyone can see the full text HTML of open access content. But the difference is, if you are a user from an institution that has an entitlement to subscribe to access content, you get a nice view PDF button here when GetFTR informs us that you are entitled to the content. And as Laird mentioned, and as I reiterated, we know anybody that's running a full text STM journal website knows that view PDF buttons, if there's a view PDF button, or if there's actually a PDF behind it, is something that really is a magnet for the user's mouse. People light up when they see that that they're entitled to get that PDF. So for us, that's GetFTR has been the linchpin of making an effective user experience for this pilot, because we can do the one thing that users really, really want us to do when they're looking around for content. Is we can give them that sense that when they click that button, they're going to get the full text. They're going to get the information they want. So it's an amazing pilot. I've been thrilled to be part of it, and we're kind of right in the middle of it, right getting into the thick of it. So next slide, please. Very briefly, why are we doing this? Why would a publisher open up their publishing platform to other publishers? It's really one reason, one main reason, which is that we like ScienceDirect. ScienceDirect is a big platform. I think it is the biggest publisher platform in terms of content coverage. Like I said, the original vision for SD was that it would be potentially publisher agnostic. And that's what we want it to be, because we want people to come to ScienceDirect and use it as a search and discovery platform. And of course, because no one goes to the Elsevier rack in the library, the one biggest thing holding people back from using ScienceDirect the way we intend it is that it's only Elsevier content. So this was something that we just sort of took as like a feature of the landscape for many years, decades even. And until very recently, in fact, we thought that was just something that ScienceDirect was. That was a feature of it. But GetFTR helped us realize that it could be more than that, and it should be more than that. And so we're trying this out to see if it will work. Next slide, please. So specifically, the pilot is there to test a few specific hypotheses. First of all, we want to figure out, and this is very much in the spirit of GetFTR, that if doing this kind of syndication of content so that the full text is kind of available in more than one place than just the publisher website, can we improve and expand the overall reach and discovery of the version of record of published content, both for ourselves and for others? Because we think as an industry that's that's our mission. That's what we should be doing, expanding the reach and discovery of this high quality authoritative content that we publish. We want to figure out and ideally quantify how much value for researchers is there, people using ScienceDirect, to be able to get beyond just Elsevier. We also, of course, want to figure out if there's, and quantify the value for our publishing partners, in terms of their own business and their own mission. What is the value of hosting their content on ScienceDirect? We want to get some real world data about that. We'd like to find out if authors specifically appreciate the idea that their content is made more discoverable through syndication. And then, of course, finally, as a founding partner with GetFTR, we want to figure out how much we think, we have some assumptions, like I said, that having that validated GetFTR PDF link will increase engagement. We want to get some numbers around that as well.
Hey, Judd, we're having a little bit of trouble with your audio. Maybe you can turn video off to improve your bandwidth.
Yes.
And maybe you could just repeat the very last thing that you said.
So the very last thing I said was that we are collecting a lot of data around this during the pilot. And then I said, next slide. And I can't tell you about any of it because it's too soon and the pilot is kind of ongoing and I don't have agreement from anybody to show you a bunch of Adobe Analytics graphs and charts and things like that. So stay tuned. Hopefully we will put out a white paper or something cool like that in a couple months. But in the meanwhile, what I wanted to say is, in discussing this with partner of mine at Taylor and Francis, he brought up that one of the more interesting things about this is the role that GetFTR played in helping us bring this pilot about. Because GetFTR, apart from just being a technical solution that allows, an API that allows for distributed entitlement checking, it's also a vehicle for publishers to come together and see if we can work together, not in so much of a competitive way, but a collaborative way to, again, further our mission to help us distribute more content more efficiently to more users more often. So I think GetFTR is really the basis of this pilot. Mainly, it's just a vehicle for collaboration. So I will close with a slide that we put together just kind of on the day that the pilot went live that kind of summarizes a bit of the market reaction, which has been overwhelmingly positive so far. People seem to get what we're doing, which is really, verifying and validating for us. It's great. So all signs are good, and I can't wait to come back in a few months and tell you about how great the pilot has been in terms of the results and testing our hypotheses. Thank you.
Thanks, Judd. We'll definitely invite you back for a future webinar. And now we'll hear the discovery service side of things. Nancy, take it away.
Yeah, hi, Nancy Summers. I work at CAS. I'm a senior product owner for CAS SciFinder. And today I want to tell you a little bit about our experience. First, I'd like to kind of go a little bit over what CAS SciFinder is. So if you want to go to the next slide. We are, CAS SciFinder N is the state-of-the-art research and discovery platform for both academic and corporate users. Something that CAS has, we have employees that actually read and review and index our content. So most things are CAS curated content, which adds a lot of value to the information that we house in CAS SciFinder N. As you see here on the screen, we have a lot of different variety of searches that users can do, substances, reactions, references, suppliers, biosequences, retrosynthesis. Users can do text search, structure search, or a combination of both to really pinpoint what they're looking for. We also have, it's not really visible here, but within substances and references, we have additional advanced search fields where users can really pinpoint what they're looking for. However, regardless of whatever content our users are looking for, full text is definitely the ultimate goal. And CAS SciFinder does have different avenues to go to full text. You can see here we have in-house links, COI links, fee-based links. our in-house links are maintained by the different institutions, and the librarians typically maintain that. So it's a very manually intensive for our user base. And there's multiple clicks. So, you know, you don't necessarily know if you have access. If you have an in-house link, then maybe you do, but, you know, you can get to the DOI, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're logged in and you have access and stuff like that. So the integration of GetFTR was really intriguing to us. You can go to the next slide. We actually, we were really excited, less clicks for our users, as we've been kind of talking about. It takes them directly to the source. We went live with this on March 28th. It is on our reference detail pages, our reaction detail pages, and our full text pages. We do have different views. So if you see, there's the view PDF with the solid green, view source. That helps our users know if they have 100% access, the full green dot. As you see on the GetFTR site, that means that they're 100% authenticated. So some stats that we have since we went into production. The first day we had 1,000 clicks. Day 2, that tripled to over 3,000 clicks. We've seen a 37% increase in usage since the first week that we deployed GetFTR integration. And last week we had over 104,000 GetFTR requests by 32.5 thousand unique users. So people are really liking this, and it gets them to where they want to go. And I think we're really off to a great start. You want to go to the next slide. So we did have some integration challenges. This was predominantly on the CAS side. So we needed to figure out the best solution to store the security key and generate the bearer token. So this is not something that CAS has had a lot of opportunity to. So this was a little bit of a challenge for us, but we worked internally and you know, worked with our network services and got that going. Once we had that on our side, the integration was very, very smooth. Sending that token and getting the integration back was perfect. Something that we also found, you know, we send the entity ID and the IP address. Not all of our users are using the federated service to log in, so we might not always have that entity ID. The entity ID allows them to seamlessly navigate into the services without having to log in. So it's a little bit of a training process to our users, but things are going very, very smoothly once users understand. Another interesting side effect, which kind of caught us off guard, but again, it's just kind of learning how the process goes. Proxy and VPN users. I didn't realize that a VPN could actually send different IP addresses depending on what you're using. So we did have an experience where a user was on VPN and they accessed SciFinder with one IP address, but when they left SciFinder, they had a different IP address, which was a little bit confusing. But again, that's all on our side, kind of education. For the integration with GetFTR, it's been seamless, and I think our users are really seeing the benefit. Less clicks and getting to what they need and what they want ultimately.
Thanks, Nancy. Wow, that's really a great story there. We're always asked about, the data and the numbers, and it's fantastic that you were able to share that. I'd now like to hand over to my colleague, Diane Benham, and she's going to give you the latest product update and some information from some user research that was completed.
Thanks, Heather. I'm going to keep my video off. I've got an unstable connection as well, so apologies. Yeah, thanks to our three speakers for sharing their experiences. I'd like to take 5 minutes to tell you what the GetFTR team is currently working on and what our next priorities are. So we're currently developing a new low latency service for some of our larger integrators. And this is going to open up new opportunities working with integrators such as ResearchGate and others. ResearchGate will be testing, there'll be our first integrator testing commences in Q3. Again, working with Springer Nature. We've provided additional functionality in the self-service portal to further simplify onboarding and support, including customized reports for publishers, GetFTR responding to requests for articles in fully OA journals, improved caching to reduce entitlement requests to publisher APIs, and easy sign up for integrators via the portal. We'll be launching 2 programs shortly, working with the GetFTR business development team to support smaller publishers. More information on this soon. And then following user feedback and brainstorming sessions, we've prioritized 2 roadmap concepts, a browser extension that provides the GetFTR experience on a discovery service of the user's choice, and alternative versions where the user's institution doesn't provide access to the version of record. Next slide. So GetFTR commissioned a UX agency, ClearLeft, and we set them 3 research goals. The first is to revalidate the current value prop. The second was to test the concept of delivering the GetFTR service through a browser extension. And the third was to explore the value of providing an alternative version. They conducted 16 one-to-one interviews, observed researchers carrying out their typical sort of discovery, access and denial processes. ClearLeft tested the GetFTR browser extension concept using a prototype, and they ran a survey covering all research topics, which received just short of 200 responses. Next slide. So of the sessions I attended, it was evident that users have challenges when accessing content from third-party discovery services. Here's a quote that illustrates the challenges that they have today. ClearLeft identified that user journeys are disjointed. A user searches for content using one tool, copying and pasting key terms from search results into their library discovery service to identify if they have access. They navigate the publisher websites only to find out that their institution doesn't provide access to the content. They often start the journey again using a different institution login if they're affiliated to multiple institutions, or a different discovery tool. If it still doesn't provide access, they initiate the denial process. And from one-to-one sessions, researchers told us they would like to be informed earlier in the process if they have access to the content. They told us that context shifting from reading to identifying if they have access was disruptive. And the survey told us that there were key needs that were not met today when using a discovery service, including saving time, accessing content, finding the most up-to-date version, easy to understand if they have access, easy to understand how to access the content, and finding alternatives when they're not entitled. So ClearLeft informed us that the GetFTR value proposition is well positioned to solve these problems, streamlining the discovery to access process. GetFTR indicators add value earlier in the journey, and GetFTR links remove unnecessary steps navigating and authenticating on publisher websites. Clearleft asked researchers to search for and access content using the GetFTR browser extension prototype. Initially, there was some skepticism from a few interviewees, but once they used the prototype, the feedback was positive. Clearleft told us that the browser extension concept appears to offer value in streamlining access to the full text content from a discovery service of choice. Clearleft asked researchers what they do when their institution doesn't entitle them to access content. They all said that if GetFTR could provide an alternative version, this would be valuable. When exploring the denial process today, some researchers seek free content elsewhere, entering terms such as free or using tools such as unpaywall. Others said they checked via other institutions they're affiliated with or requested an interlibrary loan. Some asked the author or their peers, and some paid for content. But in general, it's a time-consuming process using multiple tools and waiting for interlibrary loans. And Clearleft told us that if GetFTR provided an alternative version where users aren't entitled to the version of record, this would remove additional steps in their research. So in summary, the GetFTR service today streamlines the discovery to access process. A browser extension would streamline the process on a discovery service of choice, and an alternative version would remove the need for seeking content by other means. We'll be further elaborating, conducting market analysis, and identifying partnership opportunities for the browser extension over the coming weeks. If you'd like to hear more, please don't hesitate to contact me.
Thanks, Diane. Thanks to all the presenters, and Hilke will be moderating the Q&A. We have used Zoom meeting, you will have noticed, rather than Zoom webinar, so it is going to be possible for folks to ask questions. Over to you, Hilke.
Great, thank you very much. And also thanks again to all of our speakers for being so on point and concise anytime. Great stuff. And again, for the audience, if you have questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat or raise your hand, and I will assign questions and field them to the speakers. There was one question during the presentation, which is from Yiri Pavlik. Yiri is wondering if it's possible to take part in the ScienceDirect pilot. So Judd, I'm going to hand over that question to you. But the takeaway is, I think, that you have been very enthusiastic about the pilot, because already now people are interested in joining it. So Judd, could you speak about that?
Certainly, get in touch. Let's talk.
Maybe your email address in the chat for Yiri.
Just about to do that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have another question in the chat, and again, feel free to either raise your hand or post a question in the chat. Either way is perfectly fine. Another question in the chat from Bonnie Crotty Nelson, asking about IP authentication. With so many working remote, IP authentication can be tricky. Does GetFTR work with proxy IP or other authentications like Open Athens? Diane, could you maybe start addressing that? I might also have a few thoughts about that to add into the mix.
Yeah, so today GetFTR supports both federated authentication and IP authentication. So if a user is offsite and using a VPN, then the institution IP can be recognized and sent in the entitlement request.
Excellent, thank you. And a follow-up question to that is, if institutions register all their IPs with publishers with GetFTR or with both? Maybe then you could also continue on that one, if that's okay.
Yeah, so the entitlement request comes to GetFTR, and we identify which publisher the DOI belongs to, and then forward that entitlement request onto the publisher. So the publisher then conducts or checks with their entitlement system whether the user is entitled. So I guess the short answer to that is publishers hold the IP addresses.
And I think that's also one of the perhaps differentiating characteristics of GetFTR, that at the end of the day, the source of truth, if you like, the authoritative data on the authentication and authorization comes from the publisher systems in real time, so that you can be sure that it's accurate and up to date.
Yeah,
Second
I will
question.
add, sorry to interrupt,
No,
Tolka,
go ahead.
but also there was a question there about Open Athens, I believe. So I definitely know that Open Athens the work is done on the seamless access side, and I believe that same work supports GetFTR as well. We do have situations where publishers, their platform may not hold their entitlements. Those entitlements may be held by a third party. For example, some publishers might use the Highwire SAM Sigma to hold their entitlements, or they might work with a provider like LibLinks. Some of that work is underway. Some of that work is already done. So if you are a publisher and you are in a little bit of a complex situation like that, reach out and we'll do our best to answer the questions about your specific situation.
Great, thanks for adding that, Heather. There's another question from Bonnie, asking about the duration of the recognition. In particular, if users remain on the same IP, does that guarantee that they will still be recognized? And if a single person accessing a publisher that's recognized can then virtually pass along those credentials to staff and others. I might be able to take that one myself. I think, Bonnie, you're mostly referring to the authentication bit in these smart links that make sure that you can bypass the authentication step while the user is already authenticated. So that persistence, that recognition is really a function of your identity provider. That's really part of the federated access system. I think typically it's a bit shorter than 24 hours. I could check in or maybe other presenters know this from the top of their head. Otherwise, I could check what's a typical time frame. But the thing to note here is that the actual authentication is not handled by GetFTR, but really by the identity provider working in conjunction with the publisher. GetFTR is sort of the glue and the magic in the middle, but not the point of authentication or authorization. Does that address your questions, Bunny? And again, if not, feel free to drop us a line and we'll be happy to elaborate on those responses. I don't see any follow-up questions in the chat. So looking around the virtual audience here, are there any other questions or comments? Again, feel free to either post them in the chat or raise your hand. And the benefit of this, the fact that we're just in a regular Zoom meeting, is you can easily unmute and speak up. So again, looking around the room.
I've got a couple of things maybe that I can mention, Hilke, that often come up in talking to publishers. We get questions around counter usage. And GetFTR doesn't change how your usage is collected and accounted for on your platform, via your counter statistics. And the users who are coming into your platform, are coming in, and any Google Analytics that you have on your platform to track the behavior, to account for the behavior of users on your platform. We don't have anything to do with that. That's on your platform. I will give a little bit of a plug. In a little less than a month, we'll be presenting at the NASIG Library Conference about the privacy preserving aspects of GetFTR and also seamless access and also counter. So we're fully GDPR compliant. There's no attributes that are passed or that we even have access to. But if you're interested in learning more about that, you can check out that session coming up at NASIG in a couple of weeks. So.
Excellent. Thanks for highlighting that, Heather. Was I believe more a comment than a question from Craig in the chat, just to underline that. Craig comments that it's nice that the entitlements are held by publishers and not by a central database, reminiscent of the way that Crossref is a distributed aggregation for content. I think that's a very apt analogy. Thanks for that, Craig. All right, looking at the presenters, maybe you have questions for each other or last tidbits of wisdom that you wanted to share. All right, then I think we can close a little bit early, which I'm sure nobody minds. Let me wrap up, thanking all of the speakers again. Also, Jet, we are going to take you up on your offer as soon as there is some data to share, that we will organize a new webinar where you can come back and report on that. I'm sure we're all eager to hear about that. Also, thanks again, the audience. Thank you to all of you for making the time and showing up in such great numbers. If you have follow-up questions, then by all means do reach out and we'll be happy to connect. Thank you all and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.